Hey, you.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Okay, how about you?
I'm good. I was thinking of you all locked alone in your in solitude. I thought, oh, that's not good for him.
I've been zooming a lot.
That's good. So, what's happening?
Huh?
What's happening over there?
Nothing much. I'm all alone. I'm doing all the cooking for them still. I'm having to do food runs and drop it off.
That's bad. You drive over there?
Yeah, I drive over there. The car's with me.
Every day?
Oh no, like every third or fourth day. When they get tired of Glenda making mac and cheese and ramen. Yeah, so.
That's not good.
She's
so no kids, no preschool right now?
No preschool, everything is shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what's going on with Taryn school?
She's waiting for one more school to decide. University of British Columbia.
What's her number one choice?
She doesn't really have a number one. She has top three. So, Davis, University of San Diego. UC San Diego, and University of British Columbia. Hey Google, stop timer. Google your cup of noodles is done.
She's willing to leave the country.
Maybe. We'll see. So what about Victoria? Torrance.
Smith, Amherst, Binghamton.
Are those all in New York or where?
Two of them are in Massachusetts. Binghamton is in New York, but they're all at least 3 hours away.
Oh. And
she got accepted already, but we're just waiting for financial aid packages.
What was that? We're waiting for the financial aid packages?
Yeah, she got accepted already, but we're all just waiting for financial aid packages.
So, what kind of major?
Psychology. What about Taryn?
Biology.
Isn't that funny? Now my daughter goes by Torin.
Yes. Well, I'm probably more used to it because when Taryn talks about her, she says Torin. She's been saying it for years. So.
I guess she has, yeah.
So how are you holding up?
I'm doing okay. I wish I was more productive. Like the first half of the day, it's like I waste away doing stupid things.
Just surfing the internet.
Yeah, basically. You know, TikTok is like a rabbit hole. Have you done TikTok? Have you tried TikTok?
Are you doing TikTok videos?
I'm not making them, but I just watch them. And next thing you know, an hour has gone by.
Who's doing them? Your friends?
No, you know what it is? My students complain that I'm not up with the latest stuff. So I'm trying to see what they look at or what, so.
My 8th grade year-old niece, she's really into
TikTok?
My friend's brother actually owns that company.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
One of my good friends is actually their new marketing director, and he's gonna come speak at my class.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
So I'm okay. I mean, I've been making it a point to reconnect with people. So you're on my list of people to call, but I talk to you more often than not. I talk to you pretty often compared to others.
Yeah, so, that's probably true.
So it's interesting, and I'm hosting a little Zoom reunion with my Asian group from Long Beach State. I was thinking I should just invite Jessie just to spite her.
How funny. How many people how many people you think you're gonna show up?
Probably 5 or 6.
Oh.
But there's only
I
like
think that is-
there's only 13 people that I'm in touch with on Facebook.
Oh yeah.
Well, maybe half of that. The other half, you never see them on Facebook. They never respond to anything, so I don't know.
I wonder if I know anyone.
Do you know Shiho Nakaza?
No.
Because I think she went to where'd you go to school? You went to, was it Warren?
Where?
High school. Was it Warren or was it high school?
I went to Loma Linda.
Oh,
you mean high school? I went to La Mirada.
No, she went to Warren, so never mind.
Oh.
No, I think the only other, I'm not sure who you would know over there, except me.
Well, I mean, most of them were what Asian race?
It was a mix. It was a mix. Yeah, it was a mix. We had a little of everything. So we had some Japanese, some Chinese, some Vietnamese, and some Filipinos.
Did you have it all 4 years, or how many years did you have the club?
Just I would say the last 2 years.
Okay.
But I was at Long Beach State for 5 years. So.
Yeah.
Actually, no, that's not true. I was in the club my 3rd year, but I wasn't an officer until 5th and 6th, and until 4th and 5th year.
Who started it? Was it like a long?
It started in the 80s.
Oh, really?
In the 80s, yeah.
I thought you started it.
No, I didn't start it. I just revived it. Before me, it was this guy, Ian Kawata. Do you know Ian Kawata?
Mm-mm.
But but they didn't do a very good job trying to revive it, and then I took it over, and then we were able to blow it up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Blow it up.
Well, I went to one of his meetings, and they spent like the whole meeting debating if it should be Asian-American or Asian/American or Asian Space American. And I'm like, I went with my other friend, my other really good Japanese friend, Judy Sakai, and we met there and we became really good friends afterwards.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So, and she got me to join Hawaii Club with her, which was
You were in the Hawaii Club?
Yeah, I joined because she wanted to join. She didn't want to go alone. But then they said my dancing wasn't good enough for the luau, so they made me a server.
Too bad.
But they there was a divide in the Hawaii Club.
What was it? Filipinos against the other Asians?
No, the Hawaiian Japanese against the Torrance Japanese.
Oh.
And the Hawaiian Japanese called the Torrance Japanese katonks.
Oh yeah. Well.
So you knew about katonks?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been called one my whole life because all of my cousins are from Hawaii.
That's right. Yeah. Whatever happened to your cousin from Hawaii? You had that one cousin that came to Long Beach.
Yeah, I don't know, because she was a distant cousin. She's not she was my mom's cousin's niece, and then she was really good friends with my little sister. And I think my little sister might
Hey, Greg.
Oh, hey. Wasn't sure if anyone else was here. I just was kind of joining.
It's only 6:53. Let's hope people actually show up, because I'd hate to like disappoint like Jonah and David Saylor.
Yeah, totally. How have you been though?
Oh, there you go. I didn't realize my video was off. Let me turn off the light, because I feel like turn on the light. It's going with me. How about with you?
I mean, you know, really was starting to feel like I was just on the brink of finally getting a job, and then like everything that I was, you know, being considered for, almost everything I started getting emails like we're putting on our hiring on hold because of all this.
There's the man.
Hey, Jonah.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Not bad, you know. Could be a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a graphic novel project.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Ooh, tell us
What kind of project?
Benchmark. Have you heard of Benchmark?
No.
They do textbooks.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's money, right?
It's a
So you're
graphic
gonna
novel
be
textbook.
what's
So,
that?
yeah, so you're not gonna see it at the comic book shop, but you know, thousands of little kids will be reading it.
No, that's really great though. I mean, if you could get that kind of thing, that means that you'll have like literally like a generation that, like, you know, you'll be among the first artists that they become familiar with.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's not like I'm doing Captain Underpants. It's a textbook.
No, I understand that, but I mean, there's still something to be said for, like, you know, kids will be looking at your work.
And I don't know how big my credit is going to be on my byline's going to be on the book.
Okay.
Well, no, I mean, I'm thankful. You know how I got it?
How?
Remember Jessica Stockton Bagnulo?
Yeah.
Her husband.
Oh, cool.
She told me to contact Ramon, or she told him to contact me, and then that's how it all came about.
Nice.
Cool.
So the meetup group is paid off more than, you know, with for me as well, not just like David and Jonah and whoever.
Yeah, that's great.
So
My part of paying off the meetup group for you? Is that what you're saying?
it's a nice result of being part of the meetup group.
Yes. Well,
I always feel I've always felt like one of the things that I really like to hear about people who join the meetup group is if they get opportunities out of it.
yeah. Well, when I first joined this group, I guess it was like 3 years ago, you know, I was young and fresh and looking to learn more about comics and meet people in the comics community, and I've succeeded in that.
Do you remember
Thanks
which
to you,
one was the
Ramon.
first one you attended? Was it Fabrice Sapolsky?
It was Fabrice. Yep.
So then you're a founding member then. That was the very first one.
Yeah, I know, and it's amazing to watch how many great guests we've had and how the group has evolved over time.
So we have Nina. Nina, have you been to this group before?
No, this is the first time. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Nina.
Hi.
Let's do a quick intro for everybody, just so. Let's start with Greg.
So yeah, I thought maybe we'd wait till later for this kind of thing, but I'm a writer, I'm an editor. I'm
David's here.
Hey.
Hi, David.
How are you?
Thank you so much for doing this with us.
Oh, sure. My pleasure. Absolutely. Happy to do it.
So we're going to wait for a few more minutes, and then I will make some announcements, and then Jonah will take it from there.
Okay.
By the way, I'm Ramon Gill. I organized the group.
Hi, Ramon. Good to meet you virtually.
And I think that is, oh, that's Michael Wells. Okay, hi, hey Melvin. I invited a bunch of my students from FIT to join us. We'll see if anybody does.
Oh, very cool.
Good. That's great.
But quick, let's make the intros really fast while we're waiting, Greg. So let's go back to you.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I'm a writer. I'm an editor. I live in Brooklyn. Currently staff at Comics Beat. Also have bylines in the Daily Dot and Panel by Panel and a bunch of other places.
Comics Beat too. Oh no, the Beat too, right?
Yeah, I led with that.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm writing comics. You know, is definitely my number one goal. And I recently made a mini comic that I'm super proud of with Jonah. Yeah, so just find me online. I posted it on all my social channels.
Oh,
Nina, let's hear
cool.
about you a little bit.
Oh, so I'm graduating from FIT's illustration department.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is the final year, final semester, which is very exciting because we're working on a visual thesis show. And I did receive this link, and it was very interesting because I do love the work, and the comics are very interesting for me. And I am a teacher, and I do teach also comics. So
Nina, who sent you the link from FIT?
I received a link from Raymond through FIT link.
Oh, that's me.
Yes, that's you.
Oh, yes, you must have been part of the Mocha thread then, because I sent the Mocha thread.
I am. Yes. I think I received it previously also from your email. So this is the second time that we're receiving in our chat. So, and a lot of students were interested. I don't know what's happening. I guess the connection or something like that. So we'll
find out. Now, did anybody have trouble logging in, or did you need the password or no password needed?
Oh, you do need the password.
I needed the password.
Okay. So the password was on the website and on the email, so hopefully everybody got it.
Yeah, that went smoothly. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, Melvin, your turn.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm a freelance writer, artist, trying to make some comic books, and basically that's probably good about me.
Okay.
Great.
And then I think we had Michael Wells come in.
Yeah, hi. I am trying to be a fiction writer, trying to inch into comic book writing. I attend a comics writing meetup with Daniel Stalter, run by him, which is how I found out about this. And I think he plans to join us at some point here. That's my little story.
Raven, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You need to unmute, Raven. Okay, go ahead, Raven. I'm unmuting you. Raven, you need to unmute.
Hey.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to unmute myself.
Raven, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Okay. Okay. Hello? Okay. Let's go. That's Ichan. Ichan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. I don't know. Say what?
Ichan is one of my classmates in the MFA illustration program at FIT. And she's a great illustrator.
Thank you.
Jesse, what about you?
Hi, I'm also from FIT Illustration MFA, and I just want to hear people talking about comic stuff. Thank you.
And Wenja? Wenja, don't be shy. Ranja. Ranja. Hello. Okay, I'm just having problems. I guess I don't know. You know what? Let's go ahead with I guess with the agenda or the program. I'm Ramon Gill. I'm the organizer of the Comic Arts Workshop. I teach at FIT. I teach marketing and web design and a comic book class too. And I've been a comic book creator now for about 5 years, and I do a few projects here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And I do the Comic Arts Workshop as a way to get my questions answered about the comic book industry, and also to network, because I'm very bad at going to BarCon after the Comic Cons. So this is my way of actually connecting with people in the industry rather than hanging out at the bar after Comic Cons.
Well, it's probably much healthier.
Probably, and this is the first time we're actually doing this online, because we usually have it at a studio near FIT, and because of the lockdown, we're doing it online for the first time. And if this goes well, we might do more of these online, because I come to realize that that since we're doing this online, we're no longer limited to creators who are in New York City.
That's true.
We can talk to creators who are anywhere, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's a question of maybe doing half and half. We'll see. So before I will not introduce David. I will introduce Jonah, who brought us David. Jonah is one. I'm sorry. I'm sure he'll do a better job than me. Jonah is one of our founding members. He was there the very, very first time we had a guest speaker, and since then, as he said, he was a young guy who was trying to break into comics, and now he's working Scholastic as a assistant editor.
Correct. Yeah.
Correct. And he when I started grad school, I told everybody, I told our founding members, if you guys want to bring anybody in and you guys want to interview them, please feel free to doing that, because I won't always be able to do it. But because this week is spring break for FIT, I'm able to be here today. And before we go on, I'm not sure what's going to happen with Diversity Comic Con in October. I have to find out from the administration if we're still going to go, if that's still going to happen. I guess they have to make the decision. So, and I don't want to bother them right now, because they have their hands full with all the instructors switching to online teaching. But I will find out, and we'll find out if whether or not Diversity Con will still go on. And David, Diversity Con this was going to be our third year. Last year we had Roz Chast as our keynote speaker, and
great! Well. Yeah, she's wonderful.
And before that, we had Vivek Tiwari as our keynote speaker. So anyway, so without further ado, I will hand this over to Jonah, who will be I guess moderating tonight.
Okay, thank you, Ramon. Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I know this is a little bit weird and not our usual sort of location or format, but I appreciate everyone being here. My name is Jonah Newman. I'm a Brooklyn-based cartoonist and editor, as Ramon mentioned, and I work at Scholastic with David. I'm also, as a cartoonist, I'm working on a graphic novel that's coming out from Little Brown in a few years. And I'm really happy to be moderating my first talk with this group, since I've been with it since 2017. And I'm very thrilled to introduce my colleague, David Saylor, who's the founder and publisher of Graphix, Scholastic's graphic novel imprint. He oversees our list of graphic novels for kids, in addition to working as the art director for Harry Potter and many of our picture books. So please join me in welcoming David to our group.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
All right, David, was that introduction okay? Is there anything else you want to say about yourself?
No, I think you covered the juicy parts, right? Yeah, that was good.
Great. So the first question I want to ask you is to just trace your career path and tell us about how you got to where you are today.
I was going to say, like, how far back do you want me to go? I was born in upstate New York in a small town. I sort of had a little bit of a twisty path in publishing, I guess I would say, in that I came to New York with a history degree after I graduated from college, and I wanted to be in New York, and I knew that I loved books, and I thought I would try and get a job in a bookstore, but I didn't know how to run a cash register, so I couldn't get a job in a bookstore, believe it or not. And so I was trying to sort of get into publishing, and one day I picked up a book called How to Get a Job in Publishing, which I read cover to cover, and worked my way in basically I worked for a typesetting company briefly. It was my first job in New York. Then I worked for small science publisher, which then I went to Random House working on college textbooks, and I was doing sort of the production side of things, which was the nuts and bolts of how books are made, which ended up actually being a really good background for design and for art direction, because you know how things are printed, how books are made, the technicalities of all that were actually really good to know. When I was working for Art Drafts and Giroux and a small publisher, I went back to school at Parsons and tried to get a certificate in design at night, because I realized I wasn't happy doing entirely the production and manufacturing part of things. So from there, once I sort of had a lot of classes under my belt, I became an assistant to Harriet Barton, who was the creative director at HarperCollins back in the day. And so design and art direction is sort of where I ended up, and I felt the most comfortable and the happiest. And so I worked really, really hard. And when I left Harper, I was an art director there. And I went to Houghton Mifflin, and then I went freelance, and then I was hired at Scholastic to be the creative director there. This was back in 1996. I'm just starting actually my 24th year at Scholastic, which was on April Fool's Day, was my anniversary, which ended up being sort of, I guess, a good thing. So at Scholastic, I've been lucky enough to sort of do a lot of different roles. They've let me art direct a lot of picture books and design things and become an editor. And so I've been able to do anything that's really interested me in that area. And one of the things that interested me was comics, because I loved comics when I was a kid, particularly when I was 8, 9, and 10, 11, 12, I was really, really interested in comics. And not so much the superhero comics, but more of the character-driven and humorous comics. And so I was reading a lot of comics at that age. And then I realized at some point there really weren't any more comics for me. And I started, like every other kid, I think I went through a period where I wasn't reading very much. And I was mostly reading things for school and for class. And so later in life, when I was working for Scholastic, I sort of realized that I loved comics. Comics were making sort of a comeback in the adult world with the publication of Mouse by Art Spiegelman and other books like that. And I thought, and it seemed like a light bulb sort of went off in my head, but I thought, well, as a major children's book publisher like Scholastic, we should be publishing comics for kids, because our mission is to get kids reading. Our mission is to create all different kinds of reading experiences for kids. And so why weren't we doing comics? And so suddenly it just seemed like the most obvious idea in the world, but it hadn't really been done before at a major publisher. A lot of publishers had dabbled sort of in comics or were doing them to desperately try to getting kids to read, but they weren't working. And so there was no market for kids comics when we founded Graphix in 2005. There was no shelves in the bookstores. There was no space. Bookstores were not interested. Libraries, interestingly, were very interested in comics because they realized that some of the most checked out books in the library are graphic novels and comics. And so they've been champions of graphic novels for kids for long before we caught up with them, basically. So librarians have been huge champions of comics for a long time. But anyway, when we founded Graphix in 2005, we were smart in that we acquired Bone by Jeff Smith. And he was just nearing the end of self-publishing that comic series, which was 9 books, over 1,000 pages, an incredible saga. And he was kind of exhausted from self-publishing it. He wanted a publisher to take it on and to take it over and to promote it and sell it the way that he thought it could be sold and the way that we thought it could be sold. And so we launched in 2005 with Out from Boneville, and we did it in a 6x9 paperback edition at a reasonable price. I think it was $9.99 at the time, full color. And that's the kind of book that proved that there was a market for kids' graphic novels, because before that time, nothing really had been successful. There was no book to show that comics could work for kids in that retail space. And as it turns out, which I kind of knew instinctually, it was that if kids could buy comics, if they had books that were made for them or it felt like they were interesting, to read, but if they could just get a hold of them, they would read them, and then they would fall in love with them, and they would fall in love with reading. And so that was kind of the core of how the Graphix imprint started, and sort of how I stumbled my way to Scholastic.
All right, great. Can you tell us a little bit about the day-to-day of your job? Sort of what are you doing each day when you come into the office or, log on to your email, I guess these days. Is there an average day for you or not really? Maybe tell us a little bit more about the specifics of what you do.
Yeah, I guess there is. I mean, I think what I love about my job is that it's such a mix of everything. I mean, like a typical day is I'll get a submission from an agent for a graphic novel. Then I'll be looking over proofs for a graphic novel that's in production. I'll be reading sketches for a graphic novel. I might be designing or working on a picture book at the same time. Or in my case, I'm often working on Harry Potter things because we're constantly sort of repackaging and doing, different kinds of Harry Potter material. So my day is very unusual in that there's it's a huge combination of different things that are always happening at the same time. So that I'm starting books, I'm thinking about books, I'm in the middle of making books, I'm talking with designers, with assistant editors, with marketing, publicity. I'm answering a million emails about, the publishing schedule for books and where they're at. And, like today, there was a book by Maria Scrivan called Nat Enough, which is the publication day. And so today there was a lot of hoopla about the fact that it's being published, and we're trying to sort of get the word out online about it. So, it's a constant mixture of very interesting things. So it never, ever gets dull.
So you told us already about the inspiration for the founding of Graphix and the early success you had with Bone. Obviously, Raina Telgemeier's titles and Dav Pilkey's titles have been a huge part of Graphix' success as well. But what were some of the early obstacles to Graphix sort of getting off the ground, and how have those obstacles evolved over time?
Well, I think the obstacles at the very beginning were just that we were figuring out how we needed to publish books. And so we published several books that were in black and white only, and realized that if a kid had a choice between full color and black and white, they often would buy full color over the black and white. So that was something we had to kind of learn, because we published several books in black and white that didn't do as well as the color editions of books that we published. There was a lot of trying to convince retailers that this was an important category to support. There was a lot of educating parents and teachers about the value of graphic novels, because of the history of comics in the US, comics were sort of frowned upon as being good for you, or as not being literature in some way. And so it's taken many, many years for that that stigma about comics to sort of be pushed aside, as parents and teachers realize that kids are eclectic readers like all of us, and they'll read comics, they'll read prose books, they'll read cereal box tops, they'll read whatever they have in front of them or whatever they want to. You don't have to sort of say that something is good and something is bad in terms of reading. So there was a lot of those kinds of obstacles at the very beginning. And I think now we finally sort of reached this a huge turning point where graphic novels are being embraced and accepted and being used, to get kids engaged with reading. I mean, Dav Pilkey in particular has broken new ground in terms of the number of kids that he's gotten to read, from his books. So that's an amazing thing. And I think, at this moment, we're kind of in a golden age of kids comics in particular, because there are so many interesting books out there and so many creators that are doing great things, so much talent, so many kids that are graduating from sequential narrative classes and comics, schools across the country. So the talent pool is astonishing, and so much broader than it was, years ago. And I think also it's interesting to see that, the superhero comics are doing incredibly well culturally, particularly with movies and TV shows, but the comics themselves have lessened in terms of, I think, the general interest in some ways. And so what's taking over that space is a lot of kids comics. And I think the things that, Raina's been around now for 10 years. And so the girls that grew up reading Raina, I'm really curious, the girls and boys that read Raina, I want to know what they're going to be doing now, because some of them are now creating their own graphic novels. And so that's great.
It's interesting you mentioned the kind of the influx of comics talent and people, who read comics as kids and are now, old enough to start making them as adults. One other way in which the industry has kind of diversified and expanded just in the last 2 or 3 years has been with a lot of new publishers jumping in and publishing kids comics. I mean, Random House, HarperCollins, Little Brown, HMH have all recently launched graphic novel imprints or lines. So how is the increased competition in the graphic novel space affecting things at Scholastic?
Well, I think it's affecting everyone in the industry in a sense, because we're all competing now for the same material and for the same artists and talent. And so, and that's always just, competitive situations are going to arise. It reminds me a little bit of the somewhat the boom in teen literature that happened after Twilight or after the Hunger Games, where suddenly everyone was publishing massive amounts of YA literature, and they were paying a lot of money for it, and they were saturating the market. So happily, I think there's much further that the market can grow in terms of graphic novels, because it wasn't taking up much space a while ago. But it's definitely making things much more competitive. Advances are going up, obviously, which is good for creators. A little bit more challenging for publishers, because we have to make sure that we make a profit on the books that we publish. But it's interesting. I mean, it's creating a lot of jobs and for talented people. So that's a good thing, but it's definitely trickier for publishers, I would say.
Looking ahead to the future a little bit, the kids graphic novel industry has already changed so much since Graphix was founded 15 years ago. Where do you think it will be in 3 years and also 10 years?
Well, I'm gonna guess that in 10 years it's going to be many, many, many times bigger than it is now, because I think that it's such a powerful way to create books. Comics are, and so I think that there's much more room. And as comics become more and more acceptable as a place for reading and for getting kids to read, I think it's going to take up more and more space. And you can see where countries that have a long tradition of comics publishing, like in France or even in Japan, you'll see that there's a huge categories and stores that are just devoted to even kinds of comics, not even just, a broad range of comics, but a very specific kind of comics. So I can picture the US being a very robust market in 10 years. Hopefully. I mean, that's kind of what I envision and what I'm hoping it's going to be.
For sure. So for someone who may want to work in graphic novel publishing, you mentioned the jobs that are now available and expanding. what advice would you give to a person who wants to actually work in that industry?
Well, be persistent and do things that you love is what I would say, because as all of you know, if any of you are, if you're comics creators, it's a labor of love. It's so intensive and such hard work, and takes so much time and energy and effort. So you have to, my advice would be to do things that you really love. I mean, and sometimes everyone has to take jobs that they're not in love with, and everyone does, but if you have a chance to do a story or to do a particular series or to tell your own story, and you feel passionate about it, then I would, now is the time to do it. Absolutely, because there's a market, there's a hunger, there's a need. So, you should jump in and do it. And it's gonna, it's worth all the strife, I think.
From the perspective of a creator, what are some common mistakes or missteps that you see creators making when they're trying to get in and have their graphic novel published?
Well, I'm seeing this less and less, but a while ago, often creators would send me like a pitch package that was really geared for television or movies, because a lot of comics creators, are focused on media, they're focused on movies and TV shows. And so what they would present to me would be like an animation pack, a description of characters. Here's what this character is. This is, it's a sassy girl who's 12 years old and she has her, her pet dog, and it all feels very sort of somewhat generic. A list of character traits is not a book. It's not a story. So you have to focus on the story. What is the actual story? What's the beginning, the middle, and the end? And why does anyone want to read this story? You have to be in love with your characters, because if you're in love with them, I think other people will be in love with them too. But so I see less and less of that, but that was sort of a common mistake, was that people were sort of giving me a description of what the world was and all the complications in this world, and then a very specific sketches of characters, like facing front and then to the side and then to the other side and then with their family. And it was really meant as an animation or a TV or movie streaming kind of pitch. And that's not really what publishers are looking for. Publishers are very much interested in story and how you tell a story and if you can tell a story. And so the first thing I would say for every creator is that you've got to show, you have to make part of your pitch readable. You've got to have 20 or 30 pages of the comic, even if it's not final. But the sketches or inks or something, you have to show how you panel your pages, what your dialogue is like, how the page turns work, to prove that you can actually tell a story in comic format. So that's the basic advice I guess I would give.
Other than sequential pages, what are elements of a pitch package that you usually like to see?
I definitely like to see a fairly full synopsis. I like to know if the author knows where the story is going, because it's sometimes easy to have a beginning of a story or to create a world or think about and imagine a world, but it's hard to think of a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, a satisfying conclusion. And another mistake that people make sometimes is they're always thinking in terms of trilogies or a series of 6 books, and maybe you just want one great book, that might have series potential. But if you're going to be planning it or thinking about doing a series of books, it's very, very hard to achieve that and to do it successfully, because you have to maintain interest over a long period of time. And it takes a real genius, to be able to figure that out, so that everyone, gets hooked with each book and wants to get the next book. And or they're so in love with the characters or that world that they want to keep reading that. And so you have to think very carefully about whether you're going to do one book or, if you're going to be doing a series, whether it's 2 or 3, or whether it's 9, you have to think about it carefully in that respect. So I always like kind of knowing if someone knows where they're starting and where they're ending. It's important to know that for yourself as a creator, because editors can only help you so much. You have to know the story that you want to tell.
Shifting gears a little bit, what in your mind makes for a good comic for kids as opposed to a good comic for adults?
Well, the basics are probably the same, actually. I mean, I think that both can be, can have amazing artwork, both can have great story arcs, can have great characters. So I think it's really just more about the content. Graphix publishes for younger kids. We basically publish for like 5 to, I would say, low teen, and we're acquiring more books for the teen space, but it's more sort of about what differentiates is the content and how graphic you are, how graphic the violence is, if there's sexual content, if there are guns and gunplay, it takes it out of our space in some cases. So it's really the content, and think carefully. A lot of people really want to tell adult stories, and that's great, but if you're writing for kids, you do have to think about it a little bit. And what I always do is whenever I'm reading anything, I'm thinking about, when I was 9, 10, 11 years old, would I have loved reading this? And I'm always in touch with my inner kid in that way when I'm reading a pitch or when I'm reading a story. It's something that if I would have loved it when I was that age, and I love it now too, but I always put that sort of hat on when I'm reading particular stories.
Visually, do you think that there are maybe elements or styles that are a better fit for kids versus adults, whether it's kind of a way of drawing or a particular way of laying out the page or whatever it is?
I'm not sure. I'd hate to put limits on anything, just because I think that you can make anything work. It all depends on how you treat the material, because there are very sophisticated picture books, for example, that some people would say this is not for kids, but then there's children who love them. So I think that the range of what can be achieved for kids is as broad as anything. You have to have faith in your own work, but also it's how you treat the content and your work to see if it actually can work, I think, for kids. And I hesitate. People are often, and even I fall into this trap sometimes too, of saying, oh, kids don't like this or kids don't like that. And I think that that's too limiting. And, whenever I catch myself saying that, I try and stop, because I think that you have to give kids credit because they're smarter and they absorb more and they look more carefully than people give them credit for. And that's one thing that the great children's book artists never do, is they never talk down to their audience. They're creating, for kids, but they're not dumbing it down in any way. They're not, it has an integrity, and I think that's important for all creators to keep that in mind.
I think that's a really lovely note to conclude my last question. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't touch on before we open it up to questions from the audience?
I don't know. I mean, actually, I'm just more curious about what questions you have for me, because I always find that the things that you want to know about, whether it's the basics of publishing or whether it's, whatever it is, I think that sometimes publishing is a mystery to people. And so now is your chance to pick my brain about whatever you want to ask. I mean, I'm just ask away is what I would say, because I can yammer on and on, but
I have a
better
question,
to hear
actually.
what's really on your mind. So
Can I go ahead?
Yeah.
So I know that Scholastic publishes children's book, and I think you mentioned young adults now too.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to Heidi McDonald a few months ago, and she was telling me that it's wide open for other genres to be done in graphic novels. Not just memoirs, but historical, health, self-help, things like that. It's completely wide open. Are any of those genres translatable to the children's market?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I think it's all how you treat the material, but yeah, I think it's totally open. I mean, I'm very interested in nonfiction. I think there's some really incredible nonfiction biographies that are out there. We need more of them that are told in a really interesting way. You know, I think some of the trick is again in how you treat it and making sure that it's visual, because that's the whole point sort of comics. The comics have to help tell the story, and they have to give you information. It can't just be sort of talking heads giving each other information, which I've seen a lot sometimes with nonfiction comics, is that there are two heads in a panel, and one of them is telling them something and one of them is responding to it, and it goes on and on and on. It's like you're watching a conversation, but it's not interesting visually. So, you know, I just think that if you're going to do whatever genre it is, or if it's, you know, health and fitness or mindfulness or, you know, a biography, it's all in how you treat the material. And so you have to remember that you're doing something visual, you know, and you have to play up and rely on the visuals to help you tell whatever it is that you want to tell.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. So, you know, as I said earlier, I'm a writer, which I guess the implication among other comics creators is that I don't draw. So, you know, you mentioned that you recommend having roughly 25 pages, if I recall correctly, in your pitch to a graphic novel publisher. How would you recommend a writer put their pitch together for a graphic novel then? Should they start collaborating with an artist just for the sake of a pitch? What could they do?
Well, it's a little tricky, because I think that sometimes it is helpful if you're collaborating with a friend or an artist and you're able to pull something together that's more visual. But often I think publishers they may not like the visuals. They might love your story, but they don't like the visuals.
Right.
So that's always slightly tricky, but I think that if you present it just as a script, I've bought scripts before.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that are just scripts. I mean, there's a writer that we just acquired. His name is Rex Ogle, and he's doing 3 autobiographical books sort of about his middle school years. And he's a writer, he's not an illustrator. And we're pairing him now with an illustrator. But,
fantastic.
you know, as long as the writing is there and the story is there, you know, that's what we do. We read stuff all the time. So we can see what shines through in the words. You just have to make sure that it's clear and readable. I mean, usually graphic novel scripts are sort of like screenplays, because there's some descriptive copy that goes along with the dialogue and with the narration. I mean, and there's a few pitfalls that I would try and avoid, which I will tell you right now. One of them is don't have too much narration, because writers who are just right tend to narrate everything. And I don't want a narrated book. I want people speaking and talking, and I want to learn who they are from interaction, not from you telling me how they feel or being in their head and hearing how they feel. So a little bit of narration is always good or helpful and necessary sometimes, but don't rely on it. That's one thing. The second thing is don't overwrite, because the speech bubbles take up a lot of space, and you can't have super long speeches in a graphic novel. I mean, depending on, again, who you're writing for. There are some that do have a lot of words, which can be fine. But in general, I would say that, you know, pare things down, you know, be direct in your language, be active in your language, you know, particularly with the dialogue. Generally having it be sort of snappier and to the point is usually more readable than, you know, sort of long-winded ways of saying things. So those are my 2 pieces of advice.
Thank you. That's actually I'm feeling much more encouraged by that answer than I thought I would.
Good. Anyone else? You've got to have some questions. Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Robert.
How you doing, David? So
Hi.
just wondering, based on what just happened to Diamond, what are your thoughts on that?
Diamond is in a bad way. You know, I don't know what to say. I think unfortunately Diamond has made a lot of missteps over the years. So it's, you know, I was just actually before the lockdown all occurred, I was just at a retailers convention in Portland, Oregon. It's called Comics Pro, and it had comics retailers from all over the country were there talking about their issues and their problems. And there was basically universal complaints about Diamond, you know, because they're not set up to distribute books. They're set up to distribute issue comics from publishers. And so, you know, ordering books from them is not easy. And they often, you know, they'll take pre-orders of books and order a small amount, and then you can't reorder from them. You have to reorder from someone else usually. And so most of the conference I was spent sort of talking with people and hearing their complaints about Diamond, but also encouraging them to set up accounts directly with Scholastic, because that's what we do. And the terms for setting up an account with Scholastic, they're not that, you know, they're achievable for most small stores. So, you know, it's unfortunate what's happening. I mean, everyone's suffering right now. So, and I don't take any pleasure in that. You know, I hope that they recover, or that you know, it all sort of worked itself out. But this may be you know, a harbinger of a big change coming, perhaps. I don't know.
I'd like to piggyback on Robert's question. What percentage of your graphic novels are through the direct market compared to bookstores and compared to the book fairs that Scholastic does?
Mm-hmm. The direct market through Diamond is very small for us. It's a very small percentage, even though, I mean, that's sort of the problem, is that, and actually part of the thrust of the conference, I was invited to this conference, and the reason I was invited was because all of these comics book stores are struggling and they want new readers, and they all want to set up children's sections because those are their readers. Those are the people they need to bring into the stores, who are going to come back, you know, and frequent the stores and become regular customers. So they all wanted to start up children's book sections. And so they were looking to me and other publishers for advice on what books to have, what books to stock, you know, how to organize their sections, and what we could do to help partner with them so that they could market them and let their customers know that you know, they could get in on some of the material that we work with when we work with bookstores, for example. So that was a main thrust of the, you know, of the convention. So the direct market is, at the moment, is quite small, even though we have a salesperson that works directly with Diamond and works on the comics books accounts. So hopefully that will grow, because there are, you know, thousands of comic book stores that need books, that need to set up sections. Hopefully, you know, when this sort of disaster is over. So, but then the book market is a much larger market for everybody. Bookstores, independent bookstores, chain bookstores like Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, etc. And Amazon, of course, is a huge retailer, maybe the biggest of them all at this point. And but also discount stores like Sam's Club, Walmart, Target, they sell huge amounts of books. And then in addition to that, Scholastic, a division of Scholastic is the book fairs, and they sell directly to kids in schools, and the schools get a percentage of the profits from the book fair so that they can spend that money on whatever they want, whether it's, you know, arts programs or sports, or, you know, improving the school in some way, or their library. So it's, the book fairs sell many millions of books.
Looks like Raven has a question.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you have to unmute. There you go.
Okay. So I did from the Philippines, and it seems like graphic novels are quite a bit popular. As far as I know from the research I had in the last few months, Dav Pilkey's books are the only best-selling graphic novels for kids in my county's local bookstores. Some of the other graphic novels, like from Raina Telgemeier, are rarely available in some bookstores. Why is that?
Some of the books, I'm sorry, why are some books not available in bookstores?
And like Dav Pilkey's books are popular and it became a bestseller. While other graphic novels from other authors and illustrators like Raina Telgemeier are rarely available in some bookstores.
I don't know. I mean, Raina is a huge bestseller.
I think
So
Raven
I'm
is
not
Raven
quite
is in the
sure.
Philippines. Yes. Raven, you're in
Yeah.
the Philippines. So you're saying that you're
yeah.
saying that these books are hard to find in the Philippines?
Yes, and also Jerry Krause's New Kid.
Okay.
Yeah, that I don't actually know why. I mean, I know that our books are sold in the Philippines. I just don't know how they're distributed or sold there in particular. So I don't know how to help you with that, but it's all basically bookstores just, I guess, decide what they want to order or what they don't want to order. And it also depends what rights are available for some books. Some books can't be sold internationally because the publisher doesn't have the rights. But yeah, I don't think I have an adequate answer for you.
Raven, where are you in the Philippines?
From Manila.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so if it's hard to find in Manila, it's gonna be Manila is the capital.
Right.
So
it's gonna be harder everywhere.
yeah, it's gonna be harder everywhere. So go ahead, Michael.
Hey, thanks for doing this again.
Sure.
Wondering, I just have some numbers questions. Like, about how many books do you publish every year, and what percentage of those would you say are from like first time or starting out authors? And how does that compare to the number of pitches you look at every year?
I'm trying to think. I guess now Graphix is probably up to about 24 books a year, something like that. 24, maybe a little bit more. We used to be doing like about 6 to 8 books a year just a while ago. So we've increased our production enormously in the past 5 years, I would say. And of those, I would say on each list, there's a debut artist, at least one or two debut artists that either haven't published with us before or it's their first book. So there's always debut artists that we're publishing and looking to publish.
Right. Thank you. How many, did I mute myself? No, I didn't. How many pitches would you say you look at every year? Or is that incalculable?
Well, no, it is calculable, but I'm going to make a guess because I've never counted. But I would say probably 100 pitches a year. I'm kind of guessing because I feel like I get several, well, maybe more, because I would say some weeks I'll get 3 or 4 pitches, some weeks none, but some weeks 1 or 2. And so it's probably between 100 and 200 pitches a year, I would guess.
I have a question about, well, so Captain Underpants seems to be a younger demographic than, say, Raina Telgemeier. And maybe it's just me, but I feel like a lot of the graphic novels, children's graphic novels, are being read more by girls than by boys. Do you think that's true? And do you think there's any value in trying to pursue more boys as readers?
I don't know the exact figures between, and I don't even know if there's any way to know actually how many boy readers there are versus how many girl readers. But I would say that in general, women and girls make up the vast majority of readers in general. Like if you think about who's reading in the country, more women are reading than men in general, and so that's been true for many years. That's not a new thing. And I think actually a lot of boys do read, I mean, particularly comics, in my experience anyway. Like it with Dave Pilkey, I would say the audience, it's probably maybe slightly more boys than girls in his audience, I would say. But again, I'm kind of guessing. I mean, I felt like I went to an event that was like, I think there were about 2,000 kids, and it was about maybe 60 or 70% boys, maybe. But
This
I
was a
think
Dave Pilkey event?
Yeah, Dave Pilkey is a superstar. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. The way kids respond to him and the way that he interacts with kids is amazing. He spends time with each of those kids that go to his events. I've never seen such incredible joy, and kids are so excited to meet him and to talk about his characters or to make their own comics or to just see him. I've literally never seen anything like that before in my life. Being at an event with him and with a bunch of kids, it's amazing. I mean, they literally, the kids rush the stage just to be close to him, which was astonishing.
What do you think it is about Dave Pilkey and Dogman that just touches that nerve with kids?
I think it's because the books are so funny and they have so much heart. I think it's hard to resist them. I mean, I have trouble resisting them. And I want to read them all the time, but I think they're just so much fun that you love them. You kind of just want to keep reading them and get the next book and then read them over and over and over. And that's true, I think, of a lot of comics. Kids fall in love with them and they read them over and over and over and over and over, which is what I did. It's because it's entering that world feels like such a specific experience that sometimes is a little bit more visceral than reading prose. And so I think kids have a real love affair with comics.
Oh, hi.
Anyway, I'm not sure if I answered your question about boys versus girls, but in terms of readers, but.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Danielle. Yeah.
Yep. So I have a question regarding the artist side of publishing graphic novels. Like, how do you find a debut artists, whether it be through email, portfolio, or if you have a tab on your site if you're searching?
We don't have a submission area on our website at all. Usually I find people through going to portfolio reviews or going to small comic book conventions. Like I would have been going to MoCA, for example, this year, but obviously it was canceled. And I found a lot of debut artists there. And I often go to meet with graduating students, like at SCAD in Savannah, Georgia. I've been there several times, and we've hired several artists that have graduated from there. So that's definitely one way. It's going to comics book conventions, to small ones and big ones, because artists are usually there. There's an artist alley at almost every Comic-Con that I know of. And, just going to meet with students, at schools and to see their work and talk with them about what they're doing. SVA usually has a great portfolio day review time. So that's probably the best way that I've known.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. Also,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, talking about portfolio review, if you're scouting for artists, would on average, how many pieces of work do you usually look through?
It depends. I mean, if you have a full portfolio is usually better, as long as it's your best work. I wouldn't show work that sort of you're not quite in love with, or that's not really quite your best work. Always make your portfolio as focused as possible. But I would say most people, particularly in comics people, they have either they have a mini comic or they've even if they've Xeroxed and stapled something together themselves, but they have something to show that gives me a sense of what they can do and what their storytelling is like. Sometimes for artists that do individual pieces, there's just a piece of artwork on a page or a portfolio. I mean, most things I look at these days there's stuff that I see in person too, but a lot of stuff is online these days. Most artists have either a Tumblr site. Tumblr, I guess, not used as much anymore, but there's other sites where artists post their work, or they have their own website which they've set up, and you can see like a variety of their work, from sketches to personal work to anything they've been hired to do. So the most that you can show that's good is always good. It's always the best.
David, what role do you think do agents play in your submissions?
It's kind of a mix. I would probably say at this point, maybe 80% of the people I work with are represented by an agent, which wasn't the case a few years ago. There weren't actually that many agents that focused on graphic novelists. Now every agent wants to represent graphic novelists.
So are these creators you find and then you talk to their agents, or do the agents approach you?
A mixture of both. Sometimes I'll talk with an artist and then and they'll get an agent after I talk with them, or the agent will present people to me, or the artist on their website, I'll see that they have an agent, and I'll talk with their agent directly if I want to meet with them or talk with them.
What would you recommend, David, for writers or artists who want to improve and hone their craft? What sort of actions should they take to do that?
The best thing is just to keep working. I think you have to keep pushing yourself, but also just keep on producing material, even if you don't want to. Even if you're having, you feel like you don't want to create something, I think you have to push yourself and keep writing and keep trying to do, even if it's trying to do a daily comic, or pushing yourself to do a mini comic every month, or whatever it is. I think you just have to keep working, because that's the only way that you're going to get better, and that's the only way that you're going to develop a style, or a voice in your artwork, or in your writing for that matter. You have to keep doing it. You can't kind of hang around and wait for inspiration. I think you have to push yourself through that and just keep applying yourself daily if you can.
Okay, can I? Well, I mean, I did this group so that I could ask all the questions I want, right? So.
Good. Well, I'm sure that the questions you're asking are probably what.
Well, let's let Raven.
What other people want to know too. So.
Raven, go ahead and ask your question.
So yes, I just found out this information from one of my friends, because I got some information about Dav Pilkey's upcoming book that is.
Raven, you're muted.
Oh, it looks like she froze, actually.
She froze, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll wait for her to come back. And in the meantime, I'll ask my question. So you said earlier that you're hoping in 10 years we'll see many more comics, and you called this a golden age. So, so you don't think there's like some kind of a bubble? You think this is actually the beginning of something?
I do. I mean, I hope it's not a bubble. I mean, that would be kind of depressing, but I honestly don't think it's a bubble, because I think there's a real hunger for graphic novels and for comics. And now that there's a certain, baseline of really great material, I think that there's just going to be a need for more and more and more, is what I would say. I mean, of course, everything gets to a saturation point at some point. And that's why, as a publisher, I want to make sure that I'm publishing the best things, and that's why I think that everyone, hopefully I want the Graphix and imprint to publish books that kids want to read over and over and over again, and they can't wait to get the next one. And that's always my goal. I don't, and I think that's going to be essential. The problem that happens in publishing, and this happened in the YA market, is that it's overpublished, and then people get bored with the category because it's the same dystopian story over and over and over and over. And, it can only, sustain so much. But I think that the difference is that with graphic novels, I think it's sort of, some of it is really uncharted terrain, and which is what Heidi was telling you. I think that there's so much room for so much different material, different kind of subject matter, memoir, fiction, science fiction. There's so much room, I think, for different kinds of things. And so that's what makes me think that, in 10 years, I think we're going to be okay.
Raven, why don't you ask your question now?
I'm sorry for the technical difficulty, but I have to say that I found this information from my friend that is confirmed. This is book number 10 because I found this recently, and it was recently coming on spring 2021. I found this from the
Raven, what's your question?
I'm just sharing this information that I got recently.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. That's great.
Yes, this is the upcoming book that Dav Pilkey is working, because he has 3 upcoming books. 2 is for this year, and 1 is on spring 2021.
Thank you, Raven.
I have to. Okay.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Because I have another question, if nobody else has one. Okay, I'm going to ask this question. Do you think that an author can cross age lines, meaning they can write for the children's market, they can write for the YA, they can write for adult? Or do you think that once they have a following, they're kind of stuck?
I guess it depends on the author. I think that if you're a versatile author, yeah, I think you can definitely, change categories and work for different age groups. I mean, there are definitely adult writers who've written successfully for children. Roald Dahl is a classic example. He wrote brilliant children's books, but also was really an adult writer too, and wrote a lot of adult stories. So it really depends on the artist. If you're interested and you feel like you can do both, you should just do it. Sounds great. Don't be pigeonholed if you don't need to be. Anything else you want to ask me?
Anybody else, guys?
I sort of, I'm just trying to think how to phrase it. Well, obviously you mentioned earlier the situation where children are not actually really reading superhero materials.
Well, I think they are. I just think that the market for superhero comics was often really, like, I would say, 20-year-old men to 45-year-old men or 55-year-old men. So I think that was really the market for a lot of superhero comics for a long time. And traditional comic books publishers had sort of ignored the kids area for a long, long, long time. Now they're getting back into the game of publishing for kids, but they had sort of lost track of that over the years. So I think they're getting back to it. So there are plenty of kids that are reading superhero comics. I don't want to say that that's untrue. Yeah.
Okay. All right. But you think in general, well, it seems to me a lot of that is there's stuff that's really kind of written for those adults, and kids are picking it up because they like the movies. So you see a future move where the huge audience of kids graphic novel readers and the huge audience of kids who love Marvel movies are kind of being brought together. I've just always been astounded that
Mhm.
it seems like DC and Marvel and people like that are leaving huge barrels of money on the table, not going after that audience more aggressively.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely trying.
see
They're
it changing?
definitely publishing more for kids recently.
We got a question from Ed on the chat. He asks, when is the best time of year to make a pitch?
Oh gosh. Well, not during Christmas, probably. That's the worst time to send a pitch. So between December 15th and January 1st, I would not send a pitch. Otherwise, I think it's open. Whenever the time feels right. I mean, publishing gets a little bit slower. Well, the world usually gets slower, like in August. So maybe that's not exactly the best time either. But we get pitches all the time.
I want to add one thing about pitching that I think is important. I think that, we all have very little time, and David and I are both constantly juggling all sorts of projects all at the same time, and the amount of time that we have to spend reading pitches is not necessarily super high. So I think that you have to think about a really clear and immediate hook, whether that's appealing images, or a really strong first paragraph of your pitch letter. I think it's worth thinking about the presentation in addition to the content of it. Because if, just personally speaking, if I am looking at an email and it's a pitch for my boss, and it doesn't thrill me from the first few seconds, I'm a lot less likely to keep reading. So that's one other thing to advise to people.
It's good advice, yeah. Oh, Ramon, I think you're muted.
We've had we had Gina Gagliano on as a guest speaker before, and she said she could only speak for Random House and for First Second, but that they prefer not to see a finished graphic novel. They prefer to see a pitch and a script because that publishers prefer to be able to help guide and edit the story as it's being produced, as opposed to a finished graphic novel where they can't really do anything with it anymore. Would you say that's true for Scholastic and for other publishers?
That's probably, as a general rule, that's probably true. But honestly, I've there are some creators who sent me finished books. I mean, and as long as they were willing to tweak a few things or to edit a little bit, I just think that, it is tricky to do a whole book. And then, I think you have to be able to expect some kind of feedback or some editorial feedback. But there was one creator I worked with who only submitted books when they were completely drawn out and finished. But then he would often go back and tweak or add pages, take out pages. He would, based on our editorial advice, he would change things. So he wasn't wedded to what he presented, even though he presented it as a complete book, sort of here it is. But he was open to, as long as you're open to sort of editing and changing it and know that that's going to happen, for the most part, something has to change, whether it's, the grammar is incorrect or whether there's, something that needs to be changed for some other reason, or maybe the plot point was dropped or something, who knows. So as long as you're open to it, it's okay. It's rare. I can't, this one creator is one of the few people I've known who just submits finished books as here's this book, do you want to publish it? But some people work that way.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So just wondering, what would you say to those that you've read the pitch and you rejected to them? What would you usually say to them to improve if they ever decide to make another pitch in the future?
If I can give short constructive criticism, I will. But honestly, I don't usually go into a lot of detail because it's sometimes you'll get into a whole back and forth with someone about their pitch and why it isn't good. And if they only did this, then it would be better. And then they work on it for a week and send it to you again, and it's still not any good. And then so you get into a back and forth that isn't really productive for anybody. So if I do reject something, it's usually, I give them a very simple reason, because that either it's not a good fit for our list at the time, which just means it isn't a good fit. And that's another piece of advice I would give you too, is that every publishing company is very different, and they're all looking sometimes for different things. They have different needs that they want to publish. Like maybe they have a lot of fantasy on their list and they have too much fantasy. And so, and that happens with us. We might have, too many books about dogs or something like that. And so we don't need another dog book. And it's not that your book is bad, it's just that we don't need that book. It can be as simple as that. Or sometimes it's, the idea just isn't appealing, and there's no easy way to say it. It's just sort of say, something this isn't grabbing me. It's not my cup of tea. So I usually, if I feel like I have something short and to the point to say, I will say that. Otherwise, usually I'll just say it's not for us.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Oh, okay. I have also another question.
Mm-hmm.
So when a graphic novel is accepted in the publishing process, how frequent is the communication between the author, illustrator, and editor?
I would say it varies from artist to artist and creator to creator, but there's usually a lot of communication, is what I would say. It's not necessarily weekly, but it's there's a good amount of communication that goes on, because there's a lot of conversations about timing and schedule, and looking at sketches and giving notes back, looking at inks and giving notes back, looking at synopsis and giving a note back on that. So that I would say that usually we sort of adapt, or I tend to adapt to how the artist likes to work. Some people like a lot of feedback. Some people just want one chunk of feedback and then want to work quietly for 6 months until they deliver the next stage. So we kind of work, we work in all different ways. Every artist is very different in how they work. But I would say on the whole, there's a lot of communication. Sometimes there's for a month, there's a lot of communication, and there's several months where there's no communication because there's nothing to talk about, because someone we're off drawing or writing, and they don't need to talk with you. But publishers are there to help you make the best book you can, so they're always willing to hear from you and to respond to your emails and to your thoughts on something.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. So is there anyone who has a final question here?
Sure,
Right.
I might as well.
Go for it, Greg.
Yeah. So how much of a kind of publishing history is generally a good time for someone to pitch a full graphic novel, or is there no real kind of metric for when someone is ready to go to that stage?
You mean, when are you ready to pitch, you mean? Or
I apologize for not being clear. I like how much experience is expected from someone who is about to embark on like a graphic novel with a publisher like Scholastic?
Mm-hmm. I have to say, I don't really take any of that into account. I think that whenever I'm looking at something, the proof is in the work. So
Okay.
Someone can be right out of college and do amazing work. And I've hired people that are literally right out of college, and they've done it, they're at a certain level that's like great. So if you're ready, if your writing is good, and if your pitch is great, and it's great, you should start sending it out. There's nothing to stop you for it, I don't think, because if it's on the page, if it reads really well, if it's exciting, if it delivers, then no one's going to care whether you've published before or how much experience you have. because I get plenty of pitches from people who've been writing for 30 years that could use a lot more work, shall we say.
Okay.
So it's really just about what's on the page. Everyone, I think, kind of just looks at it and takes the value from that.
All right, thank you. And another refreshingly encouraging answer.
Good.
Okay, everybody. First of all, David, thank you so much for taking the
Sure.
time to log on with us, and we'll give you some virtual applause here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks again, and thank you again, everybody, as well, for tuning in. And hope you learned something. And you know, stay healthy, stay safe, stay relatively sane during these tough times. And it's a good time to be making comics. I will say that.
Yes, it is. It's a very good time.
Before everybody leaves, I just want to say a few words. The Comic Arts Workshop usually meets in person in Chelsea once a month. So hopefully when all this is done, we'll be able to do that again. And I am trying to book who our next guest speaker will be. It's been kind of crazy. It's not a priority for people right now, so which is understandable. But I do want to emphasize that being part of the group has some benefits in that you make connections. And I know that at least one artist is now working because of somebody they met at this group. Jonah just recently got his book deal with Little Brown, right? Little Brown, yeah.
Andrea Colvin, who has attended the last two Diversity Comic Cons, actually is my editor, although I didn't meet her there. But that's how small the comics world is. Everyone knows everyone.
Andrea was a guest speaker as well, but I don't know. And then I just recently actually got a book deal from one of our other guest speakers, but I can't say anything yet. So being part of this group has benefits. So hopefully you guys who are new, I mean, the regulars have heard me make this spiel before, but for some of you guys who are first time at this group, do come to attend the meetings because it does bear fruit. If at the very least you make connections in the industry. And again, I would like to thank David for coming out.
Sure.
My kids love the books you guys put out.
Oh, good. I love hearing that. That's terrific.
My son has a ton of Dav Pilkey books over here. So
good. That's great.
And of course the Harry Potter stuff. So, so again, thank you very much. And
sure. Thank all of you for listening, and take care of yourselves and have a great night. Okay.
Thanks so much. And everybody stay safe and healthy, okay?
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Ramon.
Hey, Ed, I want to talk to you.
Sure, I'll hang out.
Hey, thanks, Ramon, for setting up the Zoom room, by the way. I think it worked really well.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much for doing it. You were great.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And excited for more events, hopefully more virtual and in-person events.
Absolutely.
All right, take care, guys.
Take care. Ramon, how old is your son?
He is 13.
Okay.
So he's past Dav Pilkey already, but the stacks are still here. The stacks of books are still here.
Oh, okay.
Now he's into manga.
Okay.
So, but he got started on that stuff, and I'm not sure if my daughter read them. I know my son read them.
Okay, I do a kids class, but the age they usually age out around 11. But if he wants to join us,
are you doing it through FIT?
No, I'm doing it through a place called Compass Arts. But I can give every kid I know one free class.
And where are the classes held?
Right now on Zoom.
No, but prior to.
They're in Beacon, upstate New York.
Oh, in Beacon, okay.
Yeah, I want my daughter to grow up there, so she gets to do modern acting and method acting and music and musical theater. So I volunteer. I sort of teach there at a reduced rate, so she can. So after school, she's not sitting in daycare. She's going to arts class.
Oh, okay. So that's a nice trade. How old's your daughter?
She's 10.
Oh, okay. That's a nice trade.
Yeah, it works for me.
Yeah. And where is it at? What kind of an institution in Beacon?
It's just an It's just a separate. It's just an arts organization. It's a support school for the public schools and private schools.
Now, how are your classes at FIT?
It's been a bear. I've been cramming on Zoom, and I'm teaching at Pratt. And it's been crazy. Surprisingly, though, I have new classes coming up that are virtual and they're selling out.
Nice.
So
I'm
that's
wondering
pretty
how
cool.
this is going to affect things, because it's the first time I've taught virtually also, and it's not bad.
It's not terrible. It's just a lot more work.
Yes, I think it's a lot more work in the beginning, and then hopefully it'll taper. But I think you're right. I think it's a lot more work than a regular class.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is I've been trying to vary it up. I had a guest speaker for an hour and a half on Friday. I'm doing decks, I'm doing slideshows, and then I'm having people drop in their work in folders and shared folders, and then I preload them into Photoshop. And I thank God I got a new MacBook in January and a new feature. Otherwise, my other laptop was from 2010.
Okay. So
it's basically a paperweight if I'm lucky. But what the new MacBooks do is they can sidecar with an iPad Pro.
Yeah.
So I'm running my Photoshop off of my laptop, and my iPad Pro is acting like a Wacom. So I'm doing Photoshop on my iPad for my laptop.
Oh, that's great.
And then I'm able to go back and forth as sidecar. So it's an additional screen. So I've got multiple screens going. It's just like, it's rubbing your belly and juggling and patting your head and hopscotching at the same time. And invariably, huh?
What courses are you teaching this semester?
I'm teaching illustration heritage, which is history. I'm teaching comic book art, and I'm teaching pictorial picture making. Okay. So in order to do model drawing, luckily I have these things, Body by Con. You ever see those?
I have those. Yeah.
So I had one left in my house. The rest are in my office in FIT. Okay. And I set them up with like cars and helicopters, and I built a stage, and I gridded out some tracing paper to show how to do a model shoot with perspective grids.
Nice.
So I'm thinking I'm jerry-rigging everything I can, and it's just like, it's incredibly challenging, but it's sort of like, considering that so many people are out of work, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, this work that you and I do, which is connecting people together, is suddenly in demand. People want to be connected.
I know.
So
right?
I lost all of my event work. I lost every one of my caricature events, and I do like 1 to 3 a weekend.
I'm trying to figure out how to leverage what's going on now with getting more income, because like I'm only teaching 2 classes this semester.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of my clients came back from advertising firms, and I've been storyboarding.
Nice.
So the advertising firms are still up and running, but they're doing it from home. And it's only because they know me. They're so afraid to go to new people in this environment that they've been calling me. But like I said, I lost about $300 to $600 a week, maybe more. Mm-hmm. But I then got booked on another arts program, and they didn't even tell me I was going to teach it, and it already sold out. And I'm like, next time, just let me know. It just so happens I was
FIT.
That was a place called Artifact.
Okay.
And the problem is for the organizations around here, they pay half of FIT pays.
Oh, so, yeah.
So I consider it supplemental.
Is that going to be that's going to be an online class, right?
That's going to be, everything is now online.
Got it. Okay.
But it's just like, you know your stuff, so you don't have to worry. It's the kind of thing where I don't know how much to prepare for. And then when I get a group, like if I get a kids group or something, everything I prepared is suddenly, they don't care, Yeah, so I have to pivot. On a dime. And I'm just trying to tailor it, because every single group is different. Every situation is organic.
Right.
So it's been a real challenge.
When you do the demos for your class, are you doing it live?
Yeah.
And are all the students on the Zoom call, or at the same time?
Yeah, you invite them on the Zoom call. I can show you if you would like.
Yeah, I'd love it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm on Photoshop, right? I go to Photoshop. And right now I'm working on a piece for the UN to promote social distancing. So let me see if I can share my screen.
I'm gonna make you the host. Let me make you the host.
That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Can you see that, Ramon?
Yeah, I can see it.
So what I'm doing now is I can no longer see you, but that's the piece I'm doing for the UN, which is social distancing and sending out love while you stay home.
Uh-huh.
And I would just sort of go into, I'm just going to do a few little things of drawing.
And this is the iPad.
I'm on the iPad right now. I'm on the iPad, which is so cool. Okay, so I'm now on the iPad. I can then come in and say, oh, okay, so let's do another row around those hearts, right?
Uh-huh.
Command Z, or maybe you want to do a gradation, and this is how you do a gradation. So do a radial as opposed to a standard, right? And then I would show them how to do that.
Photoshop on the iPad?
It's not Photoshop for the iPad. This is Photoshop on my MacBook Pro.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it.
So what I'm doing, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because you saw I can do it.
Yeah.
Hang on. So, all right. So what I did was I took my iPad Pro and I could run Photoshop on it.
Oh, I see. You're using it. I can't remember that app, but you're using the iPad like a Cintiq.
Right. Exactly. But it's actual Photoshop running from my MacBook, and I can when I have a share screen, I can share the Photoshop screen, so when I'm drawing right over their work, they can see it on a layer.
Okay, got it.
And I just happened to find out about it like 3 weeks ago. I mean, and to be honest, I normally do all my stuff analog. I like to draw. I like paper. I like ink. I like all that stuff. But suddenly the best way for me to communicate, because I ordered a camera to demo live, and I heard it doesn't work. And 2, every camera now is back ordered because everybody wants a home office.
Right. Yeah.
So it's everything is a bubble gum and cans and string, but so far so good.
Well, this group, my original idea for this group was I was going to use this group as a platform to launch to launch a comic book workshop, a real comic book workshop. Because if I wait for FIT to let me teach an entire curriculum, including the self-publishing and all that, it's going to take forever. So I figure I'll just launch it now or myself and not wait for them. And then I'm not limited to just FIT students.
Yeah, I'm currently at 4 schools. I'm at 4 different places.
So you're where? Where else? Pratt, FIT?
I'm at Artifact, I'm at Compass Arts, I'm at Pratt, and I'm at FIT.
Yeah, I think that's what I need to do. I need to find more work because 2
But I'm killing myself, Ramon. I'm going till 9 o'clock every night easy. Some nights 11.
Wow.
So it's just a lot of work.
I think one of my other friends at FIT, he does 3 schools. So you hold the record.
Well, it's just a lot. You know what I think would be really cool, although I don't know what kind of budget you'd have. You might need a budget for this. Is you get like you run a class, but you get people to come in and then sort of specialization.
Yeah.
For example, I was rereading old copies of Draw magazine. You ever read Draw?
Yeah, I've seen it. I'm not a regular reader.
Okay, well, I used to buy it religiously, and I went back and I said, what have I not looked at in here? And one of them was an analysis of an unknown cartoonist who was the guy who trained Mort Drucker.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know Mort Drucker was an assistant, but he was an assistant to this guy who was doing, who was a protege of someone like Mark Davis from the 9 Old Men. And they talked about bringing animation walk cycles into comics. And it was like mind-blowingly interesting because they said, if you do like a group of people moving, if you make each one of them doing part of an animation cycle, then they all seem to work in unison and they reinforce the motion of the other characters in the scene.
Nice.
And recently, the reason I got back into this because what I do is I used to buy books until I moved and realized what a nightmare that is, right? But now that I've got them, I pick one up and I'll just work on anatomy for a while, or I'll look at a Robert Fawcett, or I'll go back to I'll go back to a Walt Stansfield. And I just happened to pick up this magazine because I was struggling with I was struggling with proportion because I was trying to squeeze too big a figure into a small frame. And I'm like, why do I keep doing that? And why do my feet look so bad, right? So I went back and I go, who does the most beautiful, graceful women I know in comics? And I thought Brett Blevins. Mm-hmm. And I went back to his stuff and I studied it and looked at it in a way that I looked for the substructure, for the drawing underneath. And he doesn't draw feet. He draws socks that have no ankles or toes. And after he draws the socks with no ankles or toes, he then goes back and does a second pass of ankles and toes, and it works beautifully.
Interesting.
And it's the second I get something like that, the second I have a new tidbit of information, I immediately make it into a lesson for my classes, so it embeds into me. And they appreciate it.
Your students at the comic book class at FIT, these are guys who want to draw for Marvel and DC, or are these guys people who want to draw for Scholastic?
I don't push anyone to just go and draw for Marvel and DC. I drew for Marvel. I did character designs for DC when I was 14 years old. And you know what? There's no longevity. There's no, when I got in there, I thought I'd have a career for 50 years. I thought that was going to be my life.
I think everybody assumes that.
And I never doubted that until it ended. And then suddenly I had to make a living, but I used my skills to storyboard and to teach and to do caricature work or do whatever I could do using my skill set that I survived, and I survived. So rather than make them draw like Marvel Comics, and I worship that stuff. I'm sure I must be one of the biggest geeks on the planet. In fact, my computer is set up on a 75 years of DC hardcover book. Okay.
But what I'm asking is, when the students come in, what do they want to draw?
I tell them, I'll give you a story that I give to all of them. I had a student named Regina who was about 4 feet 5 inches tall and 80 years old. And she said, Professor Murr, I'm 81 years old. I don't think I'm going to be drawing the Elf Lord. What am I supposed to do? I said, well, Regina, in everyone's life, there was some kind of struggle, some kind of story that makes your life unique and compelling and worth telling. What was that conflict in you? And can you tell me what that was? And she looked up and she kind of tapped her chin and she went, well, Professor Murr, that would be the cops. And she started protesting war at the recruitment center in Times Square in 1964. And she has gone on to do a graphic novel about it, something called the Granny Brigade, that is being published with the same co-publishing with people like Peter Cooper.
Nice.
So when everybody asks me, what do you want me to draw? I say the story that I want you to tell is your story, because no one tells it better than you. There's a show on Netflix about girls who are trapped in the Hasidic community, and my friends who are Jewish are all over this.
Oh yeah, I saw that, yeah.
I forget the name of it, but they're going on and on and on about it. Well, I had some of those girls in my class.
Okay.
And they were like college girls, but they were really super cool women. And they were like, we're allowed to do sports, so we do softball to escape. And I said, well, do a comic strip about softball. Well, softball was their way to be independent women while being stuck in this community. And then when the show comes out, I mentioned the story to my friends, and they said if they, but none of them. But you see how you just dig. You don't have to dig that far to find some fruit in your own life. It's just the conviction and courage to do it. And the great quote I heard recently was, "It's our job to bring audiences to hell." Now, whatever hell that is, I don't know, but I think that's a really interesting statement. And then I find myself thinking, how do I do that? And what would be hell for me? I don't know, but that's my approach. Now I teach, and my exposure and my passion is American storytelling, American comics. Because we have so many international artists now, and so many international people, especially in New York, my class is sort of morphed into an amalgamation where I tell people to marry the Western tradition that I teach in with their own personal culture. So, you know, you have like Thai French restaurants. We have like Thai American comics where we try to fuse more and more together to create more unique voices. And I find it successful.
If it's okay with you and you don't have to tell me right now, I would love, since everything is online right now, I'd love to like sit in on one of your classes.
Yeah, I'm trying to get Mike Manley to come in, the editor-in-chief of Raw Magazine. He agreed to do it, but I haven't heard back from him. But
when
come
you're
in
actually
anytime.
doing a demo, I'd love to sit in on that and see how that works.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. I'm doing it for the next 4 Mondays.
Okay, sounds
all right.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Cool. Okay, I'll talk to you soon, and you stay safe and healthy. Okay.
You too, buddy. Good to see you. Hey, thanks for the invite. Some of the people here tonight were people in my classes. I invited them.
I noticed that. Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, take care.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.